Having already undergone examination by Dr. Andreas Klöden and Alexander Vinokourov had survived their first examination by Alp on stage 7. In fact, they'd survived it comfortably enough that some people were beginning to wonder whether a little bit of Lance Armstrong-style psychology wasn't being employed over the severity of their injuries. Stage 8 would tell us. It was the second day in the Alps, but massively different from the first. In fact, just massive. There were 6 climbs in all on the road from Le Grand Bornand to Tignes, but the ones that mattered were the 3 in the second half of the race: the Courmet de Roseland, the Montée d'Hauteville, and the final climb up to Tignes at 2,068 metres. Now, the attack started early and caught some of the big names of the race napping, because away in a very dangerous-looking escape group were Michael Rasmussen, along with Michael Rogers, the leader of T-Mobile. In with them were Antonio Colom of Alexander Vinokourov's Astana team, and David Arroyo of Alejandro Valverde's Kestepan. Rasmussen led them over the summit of the Courmet de Roseland to take maximum mountain points, with the group containing the yellow jersey and the rest of the big names just over 5 minutes back. So as the 6-man break began the long, fast descent of the Roseland, the new race leader on the road was Michael Rogers. Sadly, very shortly afterwards, he was on the road, crashing on the descent with David Arroyo.
Oh, somebody's got off there. Michael Rogers has gone down. Rogers has gone down. Straight over the top is David Arroyo as well.
They were quickly back on, but almost as quickly it became clear that Rogers was hurt to the extent that he couldn't grip the handlebars properly. In the space of 20 minutes, he went from a contender for overall victory to a rider unable to summon another turn of the pedals, and abandoned the race in thoroughly understandable tears. Up ahead, Rasmussen was riding everyone off his back wheel and looking like he was heading for a third great solo victory in as many tours.
This is incessant, this pacemaking by Rasmussen. He is now free to fly. The angel of the mountains goes forth, and he's still a long way to go.
Well, as you said incessant then, I thought you were going to say this is insane, the amount of pain that this man Rasmussen is dishing out to everybody else. Michael Rasmussen has now decided this is steep enough for him to give them a whole lot of pain, and he's on his own. Well, you know, that is a very special performance by Michael Rasmussen, but what he's got to do now, he will now feel liberated, he will now feel free, and what he has to do is try and ride this solo effort all the way to the finish. He's a magnificent mountain biking champion, 2 times champion of the world. He said after this Tour de France, he's going to go back to Denmark, he's going to ride the Danish mountain bike championships and see if he can qualify himself for the mountain biking title in Beijing next year.
No one could stay with Rasmussen, but then the favourites, as usual, were more interested in staying with each other, until the French champion Christophe Moreau got tired of all the caution and attacked.
Christophe Moreau has decided this could be the day for France as well. He knows that he's got great form this year. He's 36 years of age. He doesn't want to hold back. He has to do something special as well to ride himself up high in the overall classification. Here is Hincapie going backwards. He's just seen the red, white and blue. The red, white and blue of George Hincapie has now been passed by the red, white and blue of Christophe Moreau. Now, this is a great performance by the Frenchman. He's finished 4th overall in the Tour on a previous occasion, and this year he's looking for his best ever performance if he can. He knew that he couldn't ride sensibly. He knew he had to ride in a brave way. He's got a teammate up there, that's Stefan Goubert, who he's just joined. Goubert will find something special here just to pace his man for a little bit longer, give him a little bit of help and respite, and then surely he will swing away. Looking back a little bit further, there's a big reaction coming as well. There's a lot of riders now deciding that this is the move. It's a long way to the summit of this climb, 17 kilometers. It's Iban Mayo who's going clear, and there is Alejandro Valverde. Not going very well, was he? Well, he is now, thank you very much. Andreas Klöden has moved across there too. What about that broken coccyx? Sorry, I think that was a little bit of PR coming out of Team Astana, and Cadel Evans is there also. Goubert concentrated. This is the move here this afternoon. The big names have gone. Where's Leipheimer?
Well, he's got to go on. He can't wait with Goubert. Goubert must be too tired here.
Iban Mayo coming across the gap. Alejandro Valverde wasn't going very well a little bit earlier on, but certainly is now. Cadel Evans. And what about Andreas Kloden there? Thank you.
Well, Cadel and Andreas, but where is Alexander? As now, this was the move. And in gain, Levi Leipheimer also has not gone forward. This is not good. Rasmussen, the king of the Alps, has ridden into the mountain leader's jersey today. He's going to climb into the yellow jersey, I think, and he's going to win the stage. This is a wonderful day of racing for Michael Rasmussen. He had to come from behind to do it, and he's done it on his own.
Well, he's still got a long way to go. He's still got a long way to suffer, but he certainly did the great move. He accelerated and broke the group down slowly but surely till eventually found himself on his own. But Christophe Moreau is doing a phenomenal ride. And look at Contador. Contador is one of those riders who's got an incredible acceleration on these climbs, and Cadel Evans is using the slipstream of Contador to drag himself back into this race. Contador swings over and says, Cadel, if you want to stay in this race, make the effort yourself, mate. I'm not going to drag anybody else up here.
Contador rides with a metal plate in his head because of a very serious accident he had. He made a full recovery, but at the time his life was in danger, and that delayed his career. But now he is a rider everybody thinks is going to be a terrific rider of the future. He is still, like all of these new boys, very young. Look at the face of Michael Bogart. It'll be all smiles and champagne tonight, Michael, when you see what your mate's done up front, because Rasmussen is still away.
Well, what they're trying to do here is control and protect the position of Denny Menchoff, who was riding in second place there. But all of these riders now very much on the defensive. There is Alexander Vinokourov riding up to the front there, and Moreau is going again, and this time Contador is straight onto his wheel.
Oh, that's a big move. I've never seen Moreau ride like this. He is confident, that's for sure. Winner of the Dauphiné Libre race. They thought that would be his big ride of the year, but he's brought that form here to the Tour de France. The group have reformed around him here. He'll wait a bit longer, but they're all back.
Well, this is a phenomenal day of racing. Christophe Moreau is a man possessed. He's having another little dummy move there, but that's a dummy move to set up another attack there for Iban Mayo. Sorry about the freeze up, but Mayo says, right, I'm going to go with you lot, and Moreau has got the gap as well, and he's onto the wheel of Iban Mayo. Kashakin takes up the pace.
Well, it's hit one and hit again. Sooner or later they're going to explode here, and we haven't forgotten that Colom and Arroyo are still ahead of these riders, but we've no idea where they are at the moment. But we think about a minute in front at the moment. We'll know soon. I think we're going to catch them. This is Mayo being countered by Christophe Moreau. Kashakin's on the left. Now Cadel Evans. No, it's not. It's Valverde again. He's determined to mark Moreau today and try and go with him when he makes the move. So as we look here at the group of still Moreau on the front, and I've never seen him ride so well. He's got a couple of guys in trouble right now, and he's just realised it.
Well, he's got an incredible confidence this year. He knew that he was going to dominate in the Tour. He's had a great Dauphiné Libre. He won himself the national championships, but he can't get rid of everybody, and that's the big problem, and that's what's actually slowing him down. 9 kilometers to go. That's 7 kilometers to the summit of this climb. Alejandro Valverde looked in difficulty a little while ago. Number 18 there is now riding a lot more like a man possessed, a man who wants to ride well in the mountains. Contador drags himself back up there. A little bit further up the road, we know, is Michael Rasmussen. He's 5 minutes and 20 seconds ahead of the yellow jersey group. Behind him is David Arroyo on the road, and behind him also is Antonio Colom. We haven't seen Antonio Colom for a while, and then we've got the next big group of the day. Well, 5:25 there, you can see Vladimir Karpets. This is the group of most of the other favourites.
Just there, this is the group containing the yellow jersey. He sat there proudly in yellow today. For much of the way today, he thought his job had been done, and Michael Rogers will be the new leader tonight. We all know now Rogers crashed and is out of the Tour. And this man, Michael Rasmussen of Denmark, who is just cutting his way through the Alps with no help from anyone. Rasmussen is racing for yellow.
Well, that's what he wants. He's got to conserve a good part of his advantage. 4:42 is the time that he started the day, behind the overall lead of Linus Gerdemann. He may not really lose very much of that. There, sadly enough, you can just see that massive, great dam wall which was built here, and it flooded the valley way back in the 1950s. They moved all of the inhabitants away from the small village down there, and that was a rather sad moment. In fact, that dam that we saw is emptied every 10 years, and the inhabitants that survive that field still get a chance to see the ruins of their village.
Well, it only holds 235 million cubic metres, so it shouldn't take too long to empty. As we look here now at the riders climbing up towards the summit, still 5 to go. 4:09 to the Morrow group, 5:19, so they're a minute 10. This group of favourites are a minute 10 now, ahead of Levi Leipheimer, ahead of Carlos Sastre, ahead of the two riders on the Astana, Valverde and Cloden. This is a very, very different Tour de France. We now go back to that group. This is the face of Alexander Vinokourov, as he now knows he is really on the defensive.
Well, those riders in front, that group that's got Valverde, Christophe Moreau and Levi and Cadel Evans in it, they need to take advantage of this situation. They want to truly, Phil, I think, try and put time between themselves and Cloden and Vinokourov, because those two riders, despite their injuries, are actually riding fairly well. And if they don't put time between themselves and those two riders now, they could still very easily come back once we go into the Pyrenees. Look at that backdrop of that incredible dam wall there. The Monte de Tignes is still 4.7 kilometers away, and there is the lone figure of Michael Rasmussen.
Well, it makes an incredible picture, doesn't it? The lone leader, Michael Rasmussen, behind him, riding in no man's land, Antonio Colom and David Arroyo. Then 7 big names, Morrow, Mayo, Valverde, Schleck, Evans, Kashikin and Contador. Then a minute and 20 seconds goes back to the yellow jersey group, which contains Valverde, Leipheimer, Sastre and Cloden. It is spread all over the Alps as we race to a rest day, and there'll be a lot of people tomorrow working out just what do they do now, because Michael Rasmussen, he's not only aiming to win the Tour de France, he probably is going to win it wearing a polka dot jersey, but it's only today.
Well, that's what he's looking for, but I tell you what, it's getting a little bit blustery up here, and having been at the front of this race for an awful long time, it's going to start to hurt him. That wind will start to batter him. He's hoping he can survive. I cannot understand why this group here will not work together. They're attacking each other one at a time. Not one of them is strong enough to go clear. They need to have the sense, they need to have the nous to organise themselves into a workmanlike group and put time between themselves and the yellow jersey group. Because in fact, the yellow jersey group is working its way back up to these riders, and Morrow knows that, and he's going again with Valverde.
Well, Valverde's planned that Morrow is the man to mark. Every time Morrow goes, Valverde follows, but doesn't help. Here comes the reaction again. Kashikin's having none of it. Mayo a little bit slow to react, but wants all the wheels in front of him. That's a good acceleration. Cadel Evans follows as well and shuts it down. Well, really, Valverde isn't very impressive today. He should try and help Moreau and crack him.
Well, I think that's what they need to do. They really need to form a coalition and work, because otherwise they're going to see the return of Andreas Cloden and Alexander Vinokourov. And these riders we're looking at, Phil, if that happens, will have lost a very good opportunity. And it may well be that they've lost any chance of winning the Tour, because I think Alexander Vinokourov is improving with every day after that nasty crash he had with Andreas Cloden as well on the day to Autun.
And there's still a long way to go, and the Pyrenees make these look like little hills, believe me. This year in the Pyrenees, they are vicious. Well, my computer here has blue smoke coming out of it at the moment. Colom has disappeared off it completely. I don't know if we've passed him, but Arroyo is on his own now. As we're seeing here, the possible return. No. Popovic is losing more ground.
He's been caught and dropped, but the important thing was that he did the job for the team. He got his man Alberto Contador into that move that went off the front there. He was an integral part of that acceleration. Moving a little bit further forward now. The yellow jersey is starting to struggle a fraction. He's got a teammate with him, pacing him. You mustn't panic, young man, at a time like this. Don't put yourself too much into the red zone. He's got time. He's got plenty of time over these other riders with him. He just needs to ride at about 90% of his maximum. Don't blow up, because if you do, you'll lose huge chunks of time on the final couple of kilometers. Looking back, we can still see a fairly big gap back to the group of Alexander Vinokourov, but they need to take advantage of this today, because Vinokourov, Phil, I think, will ride himself back into this Tour. Cloden is doing a phenomenal job. I'm trying to look back there. There's Levi Leipheimer sitting on the wheel of Carlos Sastre, Denny Menchov. All of the big names we talked about are still very much here, locked in this group.
These boys are flying around these corners now, and Cloden is thanking Vinokourov is thanking Cloden here as they come around that corner. This is a tight group, the gap is closing, and this is an incredible piece of pacemaking here. Andreas Cloden is a brilliant climber, but we all felt he would be too pained to do any of it. And when he didn't go with the move, we thought that was confirmation. But now he's trying to pull Vinokourov back into it.
These riders from Team Astana have not panicked at all. At one stage, they were almost a minute behind the group of Moreau and Alejandro Valverde. Now, they are only 20 seconds behind them. They're riding sensibly with good tactics to pace themselves back into this. Look at that, 4:11 to the Moreau group and 4:29 to the Vinokourov group. Vinokourov and Cloden are pulling themselves back into the race. Surely they'll stop those cars behind and there will be a nice clean gap, and there they are come. Now.
It's a very small select group. Leipheimer is in there as well. His day is being saved here by Andreas Cloden, a German on this Kazakh team, and boy, is this man riding like a train now. He could close it right down, and Moreau will thank no one because he was doing his share. The rest deserve all they get, I'm afraid, and that is the arrival of Vinokourov, Cloden, Menchov, and indeed Levi Leipheimer.
Well, this again is going to be very strange because we've had a massive battle and there's been absolutely no change in the overall classification apart from the leaping up of Michael Rasmussen, because all of these other riders, Phil, today are going to finish very much locked together. No change at all. We're looking there at 5 kilometres to go to the finish, 3 kilometres to go to the summit. The neutral service car is stopped over on the right-hand side of the road there. I wonder if somebody had a mechanical incident. No such worry for this man, though, Michael Rasmussen. Listen to the crowd, they're going absolutely potty.
We are now inside the 2 kilometres. The hills are supposed to be over, but not quite. This is David Arroyo. He is still riding up there in second place. He was the man nearest, only 2 seconds behind Rasmussen overall. And if he'd have won, he would have been the leader. He still is going to catapult up the overall. He's just done a double take. I think he spotted the Moreau group. They're coming. And in the distance, under that water protector, will be the next group. Moreau has decided he's got to have some gain on the day. He pushes on.
Well, that's a brave man. He's now all of a sudden said to himself, forget about all this. I'm not going to go with this infighting. I've got a chance to climb up in the overall standings. I will not let Alexander Vinokourov come back today. I'm going to wear the tricolour of France with absolute pride. They're only 20 seconds away from David Arroyo, but only 20 seconds in front of Alexander Vinokourov. This is a phenomenal battle. And look at the job that's being done by Andreas Cloden. He used to do this for Jan Ullrich. Now he's doing it for the man who he didn't want to help a couple of years ago when they were teammates on T-Mobile.
Contador dodging in and out. He's also in this little group here, but all of these gains may be nothing because the train from Astana is going to get them in their gun sights. They might yet shut this down and finish as a group. There won't be big gains now, but Contador says, I'm going to go. This guy is so classy.
Well, this is amazing. I've got a funny feeling that he may well have had a mechanical incident. I saw a car stopped and he's got a different wheel in at the back there, so he probably have had a mechanical incident.
But
he's going to try and ride himself back up.
How did he get back so fast? Maybe he's running on adrenaline and gone straight through the group. They couldn't counter his move. Arroyo could well be picked up by Alberto Contador here. There he is now, riding like a train.
Well, this man is a superb climber. You know, I'm absolutely certain that he had in the gallery there underneath the protective part of the course, he had a mechanical incident and he changed his wheel very quickly with a neutral service vehicle, and he wants to ride himself back into this race.
Well, this is a free-for-all. It's not the end of the Tour de France today. This is only the end of the second day in the Alps. There's still an awful long way to go to Paris, but you can see how these riders go now. This is a move, and this is Carlos Sastre trying to put matters to right. Desperate moments in the Tour de France, this.
Well, Vinokourov has got difficulties now, Phil. He can't stay on the wheel of this acceleration, and finally Alexander Vinokourov is showing us that he is slightly injured. He's having a chat there on the radio, and he's trying to find his last little bit of rhythm.
Well, we're looking down on the lake there as we now continue this little final climb. They're dancing on the pedals here of Alberto Contador, but he's being joined here. That looks like Sastre's got through to him.
And just behind is Denny Menchov as well.
Now, this is a big move again, more time to be gained.
Well, as Carlos Sastre said this morning, to win the Tour, you have to be patient. You have to wait for the time to make the move. He waited to see when everybody else was going to start to fail, and then he made his acceleration.
David Arroyo's being caught by them now. They're racing for second place.
Well, I think Andreas Klöden was just told there to sit up and wait for Alexander Vinokourov, because he's turned off the pressure as he looks to try and pull himself up to Alberto Contador. This man is injured. You have to take your hat off to him. He's trying to stay in touch in the Tour de France this year. He can do it here this afternoon. He just has to get back onto the wheel of his teammate up there, Andreas Klöden. He is trying to keep himself in with a chance. And look, Klöden has sat up there. He's going to go back to his man.
Well, in all of this crossfire here, the one man who isn't appearing in any of our pictures, I hate to say it, is Levi Leipheimer from the USA. I think he's been caught at the back of all of this. It has been such an incredible race. The French flag shining in the face there of Christophe Moreau. Cadel Evans is still right there with them. Valverde's face one of pain now. So too is Mayo. He's no longer as cool as he was, a lot lower down the mountain. Frank Schleck as well.
2 kilometers to go now, a little bit further up the climb, and still on his own. It's Michael Rasmussen, tête de la course. There is the summit of the climb, Phil. That's what he's been waiting for, and he will be greeted now with a flat final 2 kilometers. All he's got to do now is just ride himself down to the outskirts of the lake here. That has been a phenomenal performance when you bear in mind the battle that we have witnessed behind.
You're right about Contador. He had a bad back tyre. He got back, and when he went by, Sastre jumped out after him. So too Menchov. They're behind this group at the moment and trying to get back on terms. And here they are here. And where's Contador gone? He's danced away. He's just gone again. He's trying to get back to where he was. There's been a lot of injustice in the race today, and Contador, at least, is trying to get back up with the Moreau group.
Well, he is a phenomenal rider. Johan Brunel said he's one of the riders in the world who has the biggest acceleration on the slopes of a climb. It's amazing the style that he has. He wants to get back to the group where he was. Christophe Moreau is riding better than I've ever seen him ride in his career. He's riding with confidence, but Iban Mayo too is in the best form of recent years, and he's looking for a place at the end of today's stage.
It is not a uphill finish. He's got to make any gap here, otherwise they'll run him down, and that's what he's thinking. A big effort now by Iban Mayo, Sonia Duval, David Miller's team as he tries to get away. But there's a lot of heart in Christophe Moreau. He's desperate not to let anybody get away. Nobody's helped Moreau. It's been a big move by him today. Evans has ridden in his slipstream, and so too has Valverde, and that's where they are right now.
Well, Valverde's at the back of that group. This man, Iban Mayo, is a phenomenal rider. This is the final kilometre now, Phil, for the man who has left this race. He went on the first big categories of the Cormet de Roseland, and he's been going ever since.
135 kilometres he's been at or near the front of the race today, most of it in the last hour or so on his own. Rasmussen now is approaching the finish. We've gone back to Mayo as the flags of Norway fly here.
Well, Cadel Evans was just behind there trying to make a move. He sat in the slipstream of Christophe Moreau for an awful long time, but he sees this as a chance to pull himself back a fraction of time as well. Little further back, though, Alexander Vinokourov is riding his own solitary effort, trying to keep in touch in the Tour de France here this afternoon. It's a very difficult ride for that man who's got stitches in his knees and his elbows, but as long as he doesn't lose too much time this afternoon, he will move well up into the top 10 in this race and still be the chance of a winner at the end of the Tour.
400 metres to go for Michael Rasmussen, then the clock will start. And I think he's going to have yellow as well. This has been like he did a year ago at La Toussuire. It's going to be even sweeter because a Maillot Jaune will await. It has been a ride and a half today, and Denmark have found once more a superstar of cycling. He's riding his 4th Tour de France. He's never worn a leader's jersey other than a King of the Mountains. Well, now he's going to lead in both competitions because I think the clock later on will confirm he's in yellow as well as the King. This has been a ride, and he'll have scared the race out of their pants today. Tomorrow's a rest day, and he deserves it more than anybody else.
For Andreas Klöden, the climb to Tignes exposed the iniquities of life as a foreigner on what's essentially the Kazakh national squad. Better placed than Alexander Vinokourov in the standings, And fractured coccyx notwithstanding, clearly stronger than him, the German nonetheless had to sacrifice his own chances, letting the Moreau group ride away and pacing his leader to the finish to help limit the losses of a man whose tour was beginning to look like a lost cause. Behind Rasmussen, a rejuvenated Ivan Mayo finished second, while Alejandro Valverde sprinted off the front of the Moreau group to take the bonus seconds for third. Rolling in not much more than a minute behind Moreau and company, Vinokourov thanked Kloeden for his selfless work. Kloeden's reply isn't recorded. The consequences of the stage, though, were clear enough. A new leader in Michael Rasmussen, Alejandro Valverde up to fourth, Cadel Evans sixth, and behind them the likes of Moreau and Alberto Contador. Kloeden was still in touch, although he dropped to 12th. Vinokourov was drifting away, 22nd, nearly 5.5 minutes down. So the serious contenders to wear the yellow jersey in Paris were starting to fill the top places. And no longer content just to defend his King of the Mountains title, Michael Rasmussen counted himself among them.
Did you prove today that the Tour de France can be won just in the mountains?
I hope so. We still haven't done more than 8 kilometers of time trialing, and I still have another 110 kilometers to go, but we also have 3 very, very hard days in the Pyrenees, so I guess everything is still wide open.
If you climb like that, though, there are few, well, perhaps none, who can live with you. You could win it in the mountains.
Well, that would certainly be a dream come true.
Just finally, you have the self-belief that you could win it.
Yeah, I think the yellow looks pretty good on me so far.
Well done, Michael.
Thanks.